Tom, when you had Jalen and Josh there on the scores table waiting to check it, get in, what was the thought process of not calling a timeout or not getting them back in the game as that lead kind of went up?
Just where we were with our timeouts. Coach's decision.
Your overall thoughts on the officiating today?
It is what it is.
Coach, how hard is it for players to adjust when the game is just called differently, right? From the first couple of games, it was very physical, both sides. This one, it seemed like they were calling touch fouls versus before. What's it like for a player to adjust? What's the message to them to adjust?
You got to adjust the way they call it.
When Steph was referencing, you were, I think, one foul away from the bonus. Is that why you chose not to foul there, too, to stop the clock, to get those guys in?
Just coach's decision.
Tom, just more specifically on that, like when you have one timeout in that situation, you obviously don't want to go into the close part of the game and the end of the game with no timeouts. What are you weighing there in order to try to get guys in? Like, is there a marker that you're waiting for in time?
You're looking time, score, penalty, timeouts, all of the above. What's happening in the game? Do you feel like the next possession, we'll put it away? Like, there's a lot that goes into it.
Tom, you talked before the game about the focus on tonight. But again, a 10-point deficit in the second half. Do you see the same sort of things third quarter?
Yeah, we got to play for 48 minutes.
Just what was Josh Hart dealing with when he briefly left?
I haven't talked to medical. He had to go out. Jalen had to go out. OG had to go out.
Going back to Detroit, Coach, what message do you send to the guys?
The challenge is to reset. Every game's different. And take a look at the film. See what we could do better and be ready to go next game.
Tom, the crunch time in the fourth quarter, I know you talked a couple games ago about wanting to kind of get into the offense quicker. It seemed like you guys were getting into your sets a little bit late in the fourth. Was that something that you felt like was a problem, or do you think?
Well, yeah, we had some guys that were out, so that's the challenge. We didn't know when they were coming back, if they were coming back, so that's part of it. So you got different combinations out there.
Coach, can you talk about what Mitch gave you guys tonight?
Yeah, I thought he gave us good lift, good energy. The rebounding was good enough. Defense was good enough. Our turnovers hurt us, so we got to clean that up. Yep.
He's the guy. We've talked about it before a ton. He understands the moment. He understands when and how. And it's basically, with his skill set, it's make or miss for him, right? Like, if he can get to his spot, regardless of what you're doing defensively, and then it's just a matter of him, making or missing his own shot. And again, I was glad to see him late in that game. He finally started to get to the free throw line, which changes the way teams have to guard him also.
Karl was an interesting player, that he changed his pace and got fouls and all that. What's it been like to see Ausar over the course of this series finally study him and figure out how to study him?
Yeah, I mean, again, he's a heck of an offensive player, right? A phenomenal offensive player. But I think Ausar, from a mental standpoint, like a want to, there's not more people out there that want to get a stop the way that he does. He's gifted athletically. He's got great instincts, but to your point, the fun part is, like, he gets to see the guy over and over and over again. And then he grows every single game on understanding what's the best way to defend him and how to make it so difficult. You remember early in the series, he got a couple cheap ones in the backcourt, because he was over pressuring. Now you see him working his way back, still turning him, but he's not getting those cheap ones. He's able to stay on the floor and be impactful. So it's fun to see him learn and go out and execute it.
Were you surprised the Knicks didn't call a timeout there to get Brunson and Hart back in the game when they were kind of the scores staying within the stretch?
That's their job to coach their team.
Also on the style, obviously we talked about how rough those first four games were. Refs letting you guys play. What do you think of how the tone changed tonight in terms of the way the fouls were called? It seemed like they were being a lot tighter.
I mean, again, it's one of those things that's just completely out of your control. And I hate to, make this series about refereeing and the officials, because it's not, right? This is a series about two highly competitive teams that are battling their tails off, trying to do whatever it takes to win. The physicality, I believe is a good thing for the game. It's a good thing for us. Obviously you got to protect guys and be safe and all those things. But, you know what I mean? Like, this series isn't about the officials. This series is about two competitive teams playing great basketball against each other.
My mindset was to keep playing our brand of basketball. Down 3-1, doesn't matter. Just keep pushing the pace, keep playing defense, getting stops, and that's when we're at our best.
And you've obviously had the big responsibility of guarding Brunson. Just what have you learned about that matchup in general? And then tonight, like you probably have one of his worst first half. What's going in favor of that matchup?
Just being aggressive, but being smart. Knowing what positions I'm in and not, letting him take advantage of that. And, I feel like that helped me a lot.
What can you share about the message Coach J.B. Bickerstaff shared with you guys for the game?
One game at a time. Win this game. Don't even worry about the next two. So now the message I'm sure is going to be, win the next game.
You've seen Cade obviously do a lot of things this year, but this was the big stage, late in the game, closeout game, and he made the big baskets down the stretch. Was that as good as you've seen him in that type of a moment?
Yeah, I've seen him do that 1,000 times. So it doesn't surprise me at all. Like I expect it.
Hey, you were taking advantage from the doctor spot a lot tonight, and it seems to be an area you seem to get more and more comfortable in. How have you been able to be so effective here?
Just reading the ball, reading where Cade is, and just, my teammates help me out a lot. JD, Cade, JD. So, yeah.
Feel good.
What's the wrist?
Wrist back, but yeah.
What was it like being at the scorer's table, standing there watching the clock melt away as the team was trying to make the comeback?
Obviously, that's tough. You always want to be out there, but, we had good looks. I trust my guys. We had a couple good shots to cut that lead, and, they just didn't go in. So, basketball, it happens.
Josh, what'd you go back to the locker room for?
Just needed to regroup, walk it off, and then, try to go back in.
Which wrist is it?
My whole body's bothering.
This series has been, especially the last few games, one possession finishes, unpossession finishes. What was the difference tonight, James?
We got to figure out how to come out of halftime better. I think this is the third game in a row. I'm blanking on game 1 and 2, but, we go into the halftime with a lead, and then, we go into the fourth quarter down. So we got to figure that out. We got to come out of halftime more aggressive and, punch first.
You guys were sitting there at the scorer's table for a while while the clock was going. Did you think someone would maybe intentionally foul?
No, that's tough, because you're not trying to foul. We got stops. We got good looks. Like I said, I trust my guys, and wasn't our day today, but we'll regroup, watch the film, learn from it, and then we got another one on Thursday.
Josh, with the injuries that can pile up in a series like this, how important is it to end this series as fast as you can?
I think everybody in the playoffs, they want to win every game. I don't. I don't.
In other words, you don't want it to come back here for Game 7.
You want to win every game. Yeah. If it was, if I had my way, we would have swept them. Yeah. Or if they had their way, they would have swept us. We're not looking at that. We just got to make sure we focus on fixing the mistakes that we had today and going to Detroit, ready to go.
No pressure. No, like my mom and dad sitting up there watching me. Grew up in Long Island, New York. My father used to always, on the weekends, drive me into the city to play against city competition. every single weekend as a kid. And so, being able to go out there and play the sport that I love and have the joy and be able to compete with this group and see my parents up there, family and friends. It is no pressure. It's just a joy now of going out and playing and doing whatever I can to really help the group play. And just help this group win in any way possible. And I'm extremely appreciative and grateful to be a part of this team and to be with these guys. The funny thing about this team is like, everybody's like it's backs against the wall type mentality, but this group really loves being around each other, and I think that was like one of the biggest things. Like, we don't want this thing to stop. Like, we got to keep on fighting. And I just thought tonight it was a full on effort. You see, guys on the bench, their spirit, their influence and their passion and wanting us to just strive out there is amazing. It's a whole organization and a whole group fighting for each other.
What was the finish of that game like, especially with two teammates at the scorer's table waiting to come in?
Yeah, it was tough, man. We didn't execute where we wanted to, personally as well. Yeah, it's tough. Just got to get ready for next game.
Going into this game, closing out a series, you guys went through it last year. Though this team went through it last year. Yep. But how difficult is it to get to that, to finish off a team that has been playing scratch and claw in this whole series?
Yeah, for sure, man. It's a playoffs, two really good teams, and they're not going to go down without swinging. And, yeah, we got to be prepared, for on both ends, and just couldn't get it done tonight.
You knocked down that three, that final seconds of the game, and you guys still had a chance. Yeah. I mean, go take me through that moment of just desperation shots at that point.
Yeah, man, just, you don't stop playing till it hits zero. So, obviously I wish I had a couple of shots in that fourth that I thought it was going to drop, but like you say, you miss, you can't just keep your head down. You got to keep going until clock is zero, and we still had possession, so I had a chance at the end of the game. But yeah.
What do you think you guys could do to, come out stronger out of half?
I don't know, man. I think we gotta maybe do some lay blinds or something coming out of halftime, get everybody out there, moving. I think that's. I had the same situation like that when I was in Phoenix. We started the third quarter off and we had to change something for everybody to get out there and start moving, mentally to get everybody right. So I think that's it, man. We just got to, as much as we say play hard and we got to do what we say it every time, and we still don't get it done. So I think maybe warming up or something got to get us going a little bit.
Without Jalen and times when maybe a call wasn't going your way in the third quarter when maybe you guys were getting frustrated, does that sometimes maybe contribute to those struggles in the third?
Yeah, man. We just got to, we talk to each other, tell each other we got to leave the refs alone. It's part of the game. They're human. They're going to make the right calls. They're going to miss the calls. You just can't, let that control you and affect you. And then, the team get out in transition and, messes our game up. So we just got to, just know it's us out there, and just stick with it together.
Jalen's been so good for you guys down in the clutch. Was it kind of like a weird thing that those last few minutes he wasn't out there?
Yeah, it's just it's different. He's gonna have that ball. But don't mean that we can't step up. I should have made shots and hold it down for him as much as he hold it down for us when we're out there. So we just gotta be better.
Karl, Detroit was plus 10 from the line tonight. Could you just sense early that they conservatively just came out and played with a little more force offensively tonight?
I mean, you expected that. It's a closeout game, 3-1, and you expect them to come that desperate and also come with that energy. Season's on the line, so they hit shots when they had to, and got the stops they needed when they needed to.
Karl, what'd you think of the officiating tonight?
It didn't change the fact we didn't do our part. So if we do our part, then we have a different combo.
Karl, when that stretch where Jalen was out of the game, can you just take me through what was going on there and why the offense really couldn't get going?
I gotta watch the tape. I don't have an answer to that because I gotta rewatch it. There was a lot going on when all that happened, so I gotta rewatch it before I could give you a good answer.
Karl, this back to officiating. What's it take for players to figure out how a game is being officiated and make the adjustments? What does it take?
It just takes for us to not be worrying about that. I think, we got to worry about the things we can control, the controllables. We can control our effort. We can control our execution, our discipline. I think that's the part that we need to be focusing more on than the officiating.
Did you have any feeling for why it took you guys kind of a long time to get started today?
We just we put ourselves in a deficit early. All series we've been fighting back, and I'm not sure right now. I know I got to watch tape, but I think for us we just got to do a better job of executing at a higher level, stay disciplined with the ball, prize the basketball a little better, all of us. So when I watch the tape, I have better answers.
Karl, as you said, you guys have been able to come back, particularly in the fourth quarters in these games, and close them out. Just obviously there are just little things that make the difference. Tonight, what was the difference in them being able to just hold you guys off?
I think in the fourth they got a lot of 50-50 balls, just basketballs, that just so happenly ended up in their hands, allowing them to get some points off of blocks and steals and, just things that, sometimes it just goes your way. So, but also too, you gotta give them credit. They put themselves in position so the game could go their way.
Karl, we've praised your guys' resiliency all season. Obviously, you guys have won some games here in the fourth, but is there a little bit of concern about the hole you guys are digging yourselves in prior to the fourth? I think you guys have trailed going into, if not all the third quarters, most of them. Is there equal concern as there is for the praise and closing it out? I
mean, you have a good point. We haven't put ourselves in a position to get a commanding win. We've been very gritty this whole series and physical, and it's allowed us to find a way a lot of times to win. I think what was the differential in Detroit, like 3 points. So, you only could do it so many times before, it comes back to bite you. I think that tonight we put ourselves in that position and we just didn't find a way to get that magical ending.
Karl, you're not a particularly up-tempo team. You run opportunistically, but not up-tempo.
We're better with pace.
Yeah, what I was wondering about the pace that you guys were playing with tonight. It seemed like maybe slower to get into your initial action in a lot of sets.
Like I said, when we're executing at a high level, we've shown in this series how good we could be. So I think you make a great point. We didn't come out the gates with that kind of pace that's needed against a team like this. And we kept finding ourselves having spurts of energy when you're playing a game like this in a 3-1 lead, a game that, to end the series, you got to have that kind of pace for 48 minutes. We just didn't do that tonight.
Is there anything you want to do differently going into Game 6 personally?
Win the game. That would be on the top of my list for sure. This? Oh, don't worry about that.